Good evening and welcome to the September 28th meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. This meeting is being held virtually via Zoom video conference. Please be patient. We'll do our best to be efficient and allow everyone to participate equitably. This meeting is also being broadcast and streamed online by FCTV in real time. As this meeting is being recorded by Zoom and broadcast by FCTV, please be cognizant of what you say, how you say it, and what can be seen and heard in your background. I'd like to thank our staff, Jan, Alyssa, Josh, Mark, Lori, and Kristen for their continued support to this commission and their diligence assisting applicants. At the moment, we are missing Melissa. She's attending a class and she may come in late. We have a quorum, however, so we should be fine. Remind you guys, if commenting, I'll call on each of you at the appropriate time. And all votes have to be done by roll call. When I call your name, state your name and your vote. To our public participants, at any time during this meeting, you may enter any comments or questions via the chat function. At the appropriate time, they will be read into the record. The link and further instructions are located on the agenda. Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022 regarding COVID-19 allows for full public participation. Therefore, if you would like to be heard on a specific hearing, let us know via the chat function. Then at the appropriate time, I will call for public comment. When you are selected, you will be moved into the hearing as a participant. As such, you must have your video enabled, be succinct and respectful of others. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. Regarding RDAs, as an applicant, you want to hear a negative determination, as it allows you to move forward with your project without the necessity of a full notice of intent application. For the benefit of anyone waiting for a particular hearing, and so that you're not waiting unnecessarily, the following hearing is expected to be continued. 27 Crosby Lane. First up is that request for a continuance under notice of intent. Michael and Dorley Bingham, trustees, the Bingham Revocable Trust, 27 Crosby Lane, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to modify the structure of an existing dock. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is requesting a continuance until November 2nd.
So moved, Harlow Hawks.
Bird, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue this until November 2nd. There's no comments. We're voting. Betsy?
Filter eye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Maury?
Harlow Hawks eye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous with the existing quorum. It is continued until November 2nd. Next up, requests for determination of applicability.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. There are 2 additional continuance requests. I apologize. It's the 2 other continued hearings have also requested continuances. If you'd like to read those, I can give those dates to you now so nobody is waiting.
Yeah, which ones are those?
The other 2 continued, 151 T ticket and 836 Palmer.
All right.
Rip.
All right, so that's 11-2. All right, the next one seeking a continuance is Constance M. Ryan and Andrew Doyle, 151 T-Ticket Path, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to extend the existing revetment, construct access stairs, and nourish the bank.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until October 26th.
So moved, Harlow Hawks.
Bird, second.
All right, hold on. All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until 10:26. If there's no questions or comments, we're voting. Betsy?
Filter eye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, I.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Steve.
Patton, I.
It is unanimous with the existing quorum. That hearing is continued until October 26th. Next request for a continuance is AC Cape Cod LLC, care of Barrett Sutton, 836 Palmer Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to stabilize an eroding, I think this is supposed to say slope, with the construction of a retaining wall, connect an under drain system from the wall to an existing drainage system, conduct invasive species management, replant trees, and restore disturbed areas.
Yes,
Ben.
Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until October 19th.
So moved Carlo Hawks.
Second, Bird.
All right. All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until 10:19. If there's no comments or questions. All right, we're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, I.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Steve.
Patton, I.
All right, it is unanimous with the existing quorum. This hearing is continued until October 19th. Anything else, Mrs. Lincoln?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
All right. Now, request for determination of applicability.
Mr.
First up,
Chairman,
Larry Moore.
Point of order, did we do the minutes?
We don't have them on the agenda, Courtney.
They're on mine, that's why I asked.
We can move the minutes to next week. It was a late addition, Jamie.
Thank you, sorry.
All right, we'll just move them over to next week.
A late edition, I got it today. Whatever,
I got one today too without minutes.
thank you. Don't look at me like that.
No, it was a very late edition, so my apologies. And Courtney came in later and he got the updated one. We had Lori add them this afternoon, so we're just gonna move them over to next week.
Okay,
So,
sorry.
All
so
right,
Sorry to
maybe a
throw
point of order
wrench
is-
into the works.
maybe after a certain time, it shouldn't be
yeah,
modified.
I get it.
All right. If everybody's okay, I'm gonna move down the agenda that I was provided.
You may do so, Mr. Chair.
Appreciate that.
I think we all have the non-bird edition.
Yeah, thank you for that backing.
Special.
We'll follow you, Jamie.
I don't know, it
I'll
doesn't
just
seem like
shut
it.
up and be quiet. Okay.
All right, let's start again. All right, request for determination of applicability. Larry Moore, 232 Bay Shore Drive, North Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct an osprey pole. Ms. Bergeron,
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Carlo Hawks, second.
all right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. There's no comments. All right, we're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, I.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Steve.
Patton, I.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up. Clancy Construction, 27 Massasoit Street, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to remove a portion of the house, construct a porch and rinse station, reconstruct the existing decks, reconfigure the steps to the deck, reset the patio and walkways, and add fill so that the patio and walkways are at or above elevation 12. Ms. Bergeron,
Staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Carlo Hawks, second.
we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. If there's no comments or questions, we're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, I.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks Eye.
Steve.
Patton, I.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Matthew Osborne, 111 Jericho Path, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to add a second floor to the existing house, reconstruct the rear of the existing garage in the same footprint, relocate the existing grinder pump and install a second grinder pump. Ms. Bergeron,
Staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move. And the question is floodplain?
Yes.
Thank you.
Carlo Hawks second.
all right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. There's no comments or questions. We're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, I.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, I.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks Eye.
Steve.
Patton, I.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Thank you to the staff for their diligence in those. Next up, our request for hearing under notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. As a reminder, public commenting is limited to 3 minutes. So I encourage you to stay within the purview of this board, which are the rules and regulations of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw and how they pertain to a particular application. The chair reserves the right to stop any commenting that is disparaging or inconsequential to the hearing. First up, Ari Sorokin, AMS Revocable Trust, 77 Fay Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct an elevated walkway and platform through the woodland, revegetate the existing path, conduct invasive species management and restoration, and vista prune according to FWR 10.18, 10B. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I've promoted Mike Borselli and Teresa Sprague to present their project.
Mr. Borselli, you're up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, Mike Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant along with Teresa Sprague from Blue Flax Design. With your permission, I'd like to share my screen.
Yes, sir.
We represent the applicant, Ari Sorokin, who owns the property at number 77 Fay Road. It is a 80,000 square foot lot. It has water frontage on Vineyard Sound. And the wetland resources of note are land under the ocean, land containing shellfish, coastal beach, coastal bank, which I have highlighted in green, shaded in green. These are the areas that meet the definition because of their degree of slope and the fact that they're in a flood hazard zone. These are the areas where that is met. And I've identified the top of the coastal bank on both sides. And there's also land subject to coastal storm flowage, and that comes in the form of AE 13, circling with my mouse, and then from this blue line seaward is VE 15. These wetland resources in this plan may be familiar to you. We did apply a few years ago for a similar project. The project is a elevated walkway through the woodland from the house to make better access for passive recreational purposes out on the beach for the applicant and his family, including one family member who's physically disabled and is unable to use the path that meanders through here. The concept originally was to construct a elevated walkway similar to a dock walkway, but not a dock, to a point that access was made down to the coastal beach. The original application that included elevating the walkway beyond this point out to the the landward side of the stone groin. When we had proposed that project, there were issues and concerns raised by Conservation Commission staff and commissioners because a portion of the walkway was in a velocity zone and it was considered a structure and not approvable. You issued a denial order of conditions for that. Some time's gone by and we're back. And I think we're back with what was recommended that we originally did not propose, which is an elevated walkway that meanders through the woodland, but it terminates landward of a velocity zone. And then it would simply be a path at grade through the woodland to the beach. We've shown on here this label rollout path. And there was a question about that by Alyssa on your staff about what that was, and I described it in back to her in an email. It's basically one of those flexible wood lath rollout paths that you might see accessing a beach through a dune, a public. I think there's a couple in Falmouth actually on some of the public beaches to just make for a more stable walk area to walk through the softer sand. This is the same type of rollout path that could be simply rolled up and removed from the velocity zone if necessary. It goes through not so much a sandy beach, but it goes through the woodland floor. And it's not, it provides for a little bit more stability for access across instead of just a bumpy, ground surface. So that's the only part of the project that has anything that's, man-made. And that's a temporary thing just to facilitate access from the end of the ramp, which is outside of the velocity zone. The path will be abandoned. It'll be replanted with native plantings. There's also vista pruning proposed and some buffer restoration and invasives management throughout this area. And all the details associated with that are on the plan by Blue Flax Design, which I will now turn over to Teresa to go over, and then we're both available for questions.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening, Teresa Sprague with Blue Flax Design. With the chair's permission, I'll share my screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So this, as Mike pointed out, we had previously presented this management plan to you with the previous application. There's been no changes to the proposed management with the exception of the change to the rollout path, where previously the elevated boardwalk was being proposed to go over the existing understory vegetation, which was mainly black huckleberry and low bush blueberry throughout this area. We did receive a comment from staff, and I didn't realize this was a typo error on our part. There's still a note remaining from our previous plan regarding the 16 by 16 platform. So my apologies for that. I will be sure that that is removed and a new plan sent to you. So there is no platform proposed. You can see that on this plan that it's kind of pointing to nowhere. So there's nothing like that proposed on this particular plan. So mainly the vegetation on the site is mainly native pitch pine oak overstory. That's mostly native healthy vegetation, including maritime shrub plant community, located throughout the site. There is a significant amount of greenbrier, which we were proposing to manage, not eradicate, but just manage to prevent it from overtaking other native vegetation. And in the areas where we had some significant and heavy greenbrier located throughout, we're proposing to replant that area with shrubs. That's mainly located to the north of the proposed path. Along the southern portion of the property, there's an existing footpath that's about 210 linear feet that we were proposing to infill and restore, as that path will no longer be used or needed with the new proposed boardwalk running down the center of the property. In addition to that, we're proposing to continue to manage, there is an existing Vista corridor that had been managed by previous property owners historically. We were proposing to maintain that 25-foot wide Vista corridor. The boardwalk runs down the center of that. There were a number of stumped trees, including 12 oak trees and 1 cedar tree that had been topped, that we were proposing to remove and replace 2-to-1 with additional shrubs, which are also showing planted throughout that area. So there were 8 stumped trees that in the greater than 3-inch diameter range and 5 saplings, so 3-inch diameter or less. And that included 12 oaks and 1 cedar, as I just pointed out. So we are proposing to remove them. They had been cut, topped, they're poorly formed, and we were replacing those 2-to-1 with native shrubs. In all, we're proposing to replant 144 shrubs and 2 understory trees, basically building upon the existing plant community that's located throughout the area. So that's arrowwood viburnum, bayberry, winterberry holly, inkberry holly, black huckleberry, and clethra, with 2 amelanchiers that are being proposed for planting on the mid and then eastern portion of the property. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions about the proposed restoration. Of course, Vista management will be completed per the Falmouth Vista pruning regulations. Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. Jen, would you like to start? You're on mute. Oh, wait, no.
Give you that look again. Hi, Teresa. Hi, Mike. Mike, you have the same note about the platform?
Yeah, it's my fault, because Teresa used my plan, so the mistake translated over to her. It's a leftover from the original design. I'll remove it from my plan as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for explaining more the rollout path. So, I mean, so it's going to be rolled. It's not going to be like a structure down there at ground level. Okay, perfect.
Nope.
And the only other thing is we can support the removal of the trees within the view corridor. But the board can decide if you want the additional, if you would allow the additional trees to be removed. But we can support the ones in that traditional view corridor. And I think there was, what, 2 of them in there, Teresa? I think there's like 2.
Let me double check, but I think so. Yes, so there were some just outside of the view corridor. That's correct. There were 7 outside of the view corridor. So, and 7 stumped oaks and 1 topped cedar that are just outside of the view corridor, just to the north of the proposed view.
So we can support the ones in the view corridor.
Okay.
But the board can decide what they want to do with the other 7 that you were just talking about.
Okay.
And just for clarification on like future plans, your shrub icons, that's where they're going to go after you remove the greenbrier, correct?
Correct.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
That's all we have. I think, as Mike said, I reread the board's denial order of conditions on the original proposal, and this seems to address the concerns the commission and the staff had at that time. That's all, Mr. Chairman, unless Alyssa has anything to add.
Ms. Bergeron.
All of our questions have been answered, so thank you.
All right. Commissioner comments, Betsy.
I do believe it was Jen's suggestion the first time this came around to have that rollout. And I also believe that all of our public beaches have that available, those rollout mats.
Mhm.
This is good. Thanks for, well, I mean, they didn't have a choice of going ahead with the other plan, but working with staff and this,
So-
this, well done.
We're back with a little humility.
Nah, it's all good. All right, Betsy, you good?
Yep, I'm good.
All right, Courtney.
No comments. It's a nice project.
Okay. Okay. All right, Kevin.
No comments, Mr. Chairman. It's, seems a very good project.
Maury.
I'm glad they came back with what we had pretty much recommended, but I think that the 7 trees should be replanted with trees. It just actually extends the view corridor to a 35-foot view corridor instead of 25-foot. And shrubbery is not a good replacement for what would be oaks and cedars. Other than that, it's a good project.
All right. Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, another beautiful place. And the plan is a little hard to follow from the beach side, trying to figure out where this path's going to go, but it'll be quite a project, I think, to put it in there. And I got a new term, historically cut trees. So I looked it up. Doesn't exist. But I understand what you were saying, and I agree. So thank you. Comments are always amazing from the staff.
All right. Mike, what's the proposal for the methodology?
There's two possible cross sections we're looking at. One would be with helical anchors. Oh, I got to share my screen. I'm sorry. I'm
That's all right.
pointing at it. One method would be helical anchors. The alternative would be 4x4 posts that are augured. The access, if the helicals, either way, whether it's helicals or augured, there's a access way around the house outside jurisdiction that comes down through here that a mini excavator could make its way down here with an attachment and do the installation of the anchors, the posts or the helicals. And then once they're installed, it's pretty much standard framing for like a walkway that would all be done by hand labor. And that's pretty much it.
I was looking to see how you plan to dig those.
Yep.
Okay. All right. All right, Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the chat, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Betsy, you have a comment?
I have 2 comments. One is with the with either, are you worried about running into rocks?
Yeah. If we hit any stones, the setting might have to be adjusted and the spacing between sections may be a little different, but we'll have to kind of just play it by ear in the field as we install them. Depends how deep the rocks are and how big they are.
Okay. And the other comment was just that I agree with Maury. I obviously like woody shrubs, but I like the function of trees in an area better. And we can discuss that.
All right. Any other comments or questions?
My only question was about the helicals. That's really bony soil down there. I wonder how
Right,
you're gonna work with those.
right.
As long as we're permitting in the alternative that you have to dig them, that's fair
Right.
enough.
Right.
All right. Mike,
Want a
Patricia,
motion?
you have anything else to add? All right. Yes, Betsy.
Okay, I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Bird second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. If there's no other comments or questions. All right, we're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks eye.
Steve.
Aye.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
Next up, Allison and William I'm sorry if I get this wrong. Mankiewicz? Allison Mankiewicz Trust, 210 Quistit Avenue, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to relocate the septic tank, remove the existing deck and porches, and construct a new deck and porches, and augment the foundation where the deck is enlarged. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Barcelli is here to present his project.
All right, welcome back, Mike.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. For the record, Mike Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. The property is located at 210 Quistit Avenue. Access is via a common driveway that meanders through past one home.
Excuse me, Mike, you're not sharing yet.
Yeah,
I don't know if you intended to. Just
No.
throwing it out there.
it's a little rusty, I guess, again tonight.
Yeah.
So the common driveway makes its way from the formal Quistit Avenue by one dwelling that was originally developed at the same time as this dwelling. And access is through a driveway here. The property is situated on a flat plateau area that is adjacent to a non-eroding coastal bank on this side, and it wraps around over on this side. At the base of or toe of this coastal bank is a small fish pond that was a landscape feature. It's lily pond. There's koi in it, or there's some fish in it that are either goldfish or koi or a combination. It was part of the original state when there was only one house here. On this side, at the base of the coastal bank, is the salt marsh. And some of you may be familiar with beyond the salt marsh, out further out here is an ancient cedar swamp, which is kind of an interesting feature. I permitted the original house on this property in the mid-90s, seems like yesterday. The property sold. The new owners, the applicant tonight, are doing interior renovations, and they wanted to basically kind of spruce it up and rebuild the front porch and the wraparound deck. It's starting to get in need of maintenance, and it made more sense to just rebuild it with new materials in their opinion. There's tiny little square off. If you were at the site, this one little corner was a 45-degree angle, and it is just being squared off because it was wasted space. It actually technically doesn't go closer to the wetland resource because the closest point is here. And then there was a funny jog in the deck. This is like a walkout, by the way. So this deck level is one story up. The ground is underneath it. You know, you can stand under it. And the basement level is underneath this. This little area here is new deck, and that little corner is new deck. But they're removing a section of a wraparound porch here when they rebuild this new porch. So there's no net increase in impervious surfaces. So there's no requirement for mitigation. I almost applied for a RDA, but I thought it was a little bit too much for an RDA. I'm proposing a limit of work along the edge of the existing tree lines, so there's no clearing, no cutting of anything. This is lawn and landscape from the original house when it was constructed. And that sums it up. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mike. Jen,
Mike, where you're squaring that deck off on the back side, it's not moving closer to that coastal bank, is it?
No,
It looks like the bank bends in that area, but you didn't give me a shot over there, so.
yeah, I can zoom in, but the closest point to the coastal bank is right where the word of is. From here straight on is closer than this square off would be to over here.
I'm talking about the other side where it looks like you're going, or, yeah,
Oh,
right
over
there.
here?
Yeah,
Same thing. You can see how that kind of meanders along the contour. So that section there doesn't get closer and it actually gets built. It's up in the air 1 story. There's a landscape wall that it's going to get built on top of that already exists.
okay, but in the future, kind of put those shots on the plan so it's really clear.
Yeah, I understand. I'm
Yeah.
happy to give you a revised plan if you want one.
I don't think it's necessary, but like I said, in the future, just make sure that you
Yep.
have your closest point and then you really make it clear that you're not moving closer on that other point.
Understood.
And ignore my comments about the land under ocean. When I zoomed into I couldn't even remember the site. And when I zoomed over, I quickly put on like the aerial layer. I'm like, that's not a pond. That's part of Quistit Harbor, but I didn't see the tiny little pond. I thought that was woods over there.
Yeah.
It's not. When I turn off the aerial, then I see it in blue. And I was like, oh, weird.
Yeah.
But I just saw that.
Yep.
That marsh creeps up in there. Is that salt marsh up in there? No?
Yep. There is a salt marsh to the south side,
Okay,
southwest side.
all right, perfect.
I show the no disturbance zone A's and.
Yeah.
and
Okay, yeah.
and
No, I think that's all I had, Mr. Chairman, unless Alyssa has anything to add. This is pretty straightforward.
We just had one other comment, Mike. I know that you said the septic tank was going to be relocated. Can you show us where on the plan it will be relocated to?
Oh, if I said that, it was a mistake.
Oh, okay.
I'll show you quickly once again. The existing septic tank is right here. If I had said this tank was to be relocated, that was a mistake because it would only have to be really relocated if it was less than 10 feet from a foundation. And this is a sonotube supported porch. It is less than 10 feet, but there's no setback for a sonotube supported porch.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Yep.
That's all I have.
all right. Commissioner comments, Steve,
No, Mr. Chairman, I didn't have any comments. I thought it was a reasonable approach. When I first saw the site and all the construction going on, I thought I was at the wrong place, but yeah, I didn't think the change in the deck was significant. Thank you.
sure. Maury,
The only question I had, well, comment was that they're actually reducing structure because the steps on that porch, I think you're losing like 4 steps. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was a
true.
good project. I remember this one. You've done a nice job there. Thank you.
Thanks.
okay. Kevin,
No questions, Mr. Chairman. A nice project.
here's a nice project. All right, Courtney,
No comments.
Betsy,
No questions or comments. Thanks.
wow, all right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Then I'll propose a motion to
Excellent.
close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Bird second.
All right, are there any other comments or questions from anyone? All right, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing. We're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks Eye.
Steve,
I'm aye.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Mr. Boselli.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Night, Mike.
Good night.
Night, Mike.
Good night.
All right, next up, Matthew Waldrop, Enstar Electric Company, DBA, Eversource Energy, Mill Road right of way, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to install a fifth submarine distribution cable between Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard to improve reliability of grid-based electricity on Martha's Vineyard. The project consists of installing approximately 2.32 miles of new underground duct and a manhole system from the existing Eversource substation, number 933, off Stevens Lane to the intersection of Surf Drive and Mill Road. The cable will also be installed in approximately 0.38 miles of existing conduit in Surf Drive to the intersection of Surf Drive and Shore Street. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I am promoting Matthew Waldrop up. Here he comes, and Dwight Gunk from Epsilon Associates to present their project.
Excellent.
Yes. Good evening. This is Dwight Dunk with Epsilon Associates. Unfortunately, I appear to be having a problem with my camera. It's not recognizing my my camera here. So sorry about that. But hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Jennifer, if it's okay, I'll share my screen.
Yes, please.
Great. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes. As you mentioned with the agenda, we're here for the notice of intent for the Martha's Vineyard Reliability Project. This is the Falmouth landside route segment of that project. DEP file number SE 254790. One administrative item, Jennifer, I just want to confirm that you received the proof of abutters notifications and copies of the green cards that my colleague emailed to your office yesterday.
I believe we did.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, this segment of the project involves the constructing the landside or terrestrial cable from the Eversource substation up off of Stevens Street, down Stevens Street, and then over to the bike path, along the bike path, down Mill Road, and then it will utilize the existing duct that's in Surf Drive. There's about 100 feet of new duct that will be in Surf Drive right at the intersection of Mill Road. So that's the whole underground duct and manhole system for the new cable. In terms of work that's subject to the Wetlands Protection Act and the bylaw, it is limited to the work within floodplain that extends along Mill Road and across Surf Drive, as well as buffer zone to resource areas adjacent. The work within the wetland resource areas within the project area, starting from the ocean, obviously land under ocean, there's beach, dune, lands of coastal storm flowage, and then with Salt Pond, we have the land under salt ponds, bordering vegetated wetland and inland bank along the pond. And then, some of the other resource areas are land containing shellfish, which is out in the sound, and land subject to tidal action. The wetland resource areas, the FEMA designated floodplain extends well up on Mill Road. So it's this portion of the project that's within floodplain. Is shown in figure 4, the various 12 sheets that show the entire project as we get down into sheets 9 through 12. This just shows the Mill Road, which is the work area identified in yellow. We have the inland bank that's along the pond, and then the 100-foot buffer zone in the town's buffer as well, and then the 100-year floodplain. As we continue down Mill Road, the floodplain buffer, etc., meanders, but we assumed all of most of the project is within the 100-year floodplain as LSCSF. As we get down to the Surf Drive intersection, again, the new duct system will come all the way down to Mill Road, and the new duct will extend to about these driveways here, and then from this point, the new cable will be installed in the existing duct that's in Surf Drive. The wetland resource areas were delineated in the field. Figure 10 shows the wetland flags for the BBW along Salt Pond by the parking lot, as well as the inland bank that extends further north. We have beach, and we delineated and located by GPS the edge of the dune, which is right along the shoulder of the road of Surf Drive. The boundaries of the dune are pretty much coincident with the dune that was delineated for the cable that was constructed circa 2014 as SE 253889. And then again, extending over to the Surf Drive parking lot, the new cable will be installed in here, but there's no duct work, there's no excavation or anything like that for this segment of the project. The natural heritage estimated habitats. We have estimated habitat out in the Sound, coordination with natural heritage for the MIPA review. It's mainly shorebirds, piping plovers, terns. The project itself is just outside the limit of the mapped polygon for the habitat. It's within the road. Also, in accordance with the Division of Fish and Wildlife regulations, it is exempt from their review per 321 CMR 1014-6, which includes construction of utility lines within existing paved areas with no expansion of the pavement. So since all the work in Mill Road and just coming down to about this point for the new duct is all within existing road, it is exempt from their review. This is a traditional utility project that I'm sure you're used to seeing, for water, drainage, sewer. This is an underground duct system. So it will involve the same type of construction techniques. Cut the pavement, excavate the trench, install the duct and manholes, backfill the trench, pave it. By here, we would have the extra step that at a future date, then the cable itself will be strung by opening up the manholes and then stringing the cable through the manhole system. This project will involve work within 14,500 square feet of land subject to coastal storm flowage, all within Mill Road and that little segment of Surf Drive. About 1,300 square feet for the 6 manholes and 13,200 square feet for the duct bank. Here it's traditional construction period mitigation measures. Eversource does have a manual for all their contractors to follow. So the typical measures will be implemented, such as perimeter sedimentation controls, catch basin inlet protection, if there's any need for trench dewatering, filtering that prior to discharge. And this project will involve a EPA stormwater pollution prevention plan that will be prepared for the project that has not been prepared yet. And that will provide greater detail on the construction period, erosion, and sedimentation control. I won't go through the long review of compliance with the regulations. That's presented in section 5 of the project narrative, which is attachment A of the notice of intent, but we've demonstrated compliance with the Wetlands Protection Act regulations and the Falmouth wetland regulations. Where work is within LSCSF, and the project will involve no change in surface topography, no filling, no structures. There'll be no change in the horizontal or vertical extent of flooding. It will not cause any redirection of flood flows or change floodwater velocities. So, in terms of the regulations and the act and the bylaw, it does protect the interests of storm damage prevention and flood control. Also, the work in buffer zones. This is, the same work with the mitigation measures are proposed to make sure there's no alteration of those associated proximate wetland resource areas. This was also filed as a limited project, but we think the project meets all of the standards, applicable standards for LSCSF in the buffer zone. As you know, or you may know, this is part of the full Martha's Vineyard MVRP, or Martha's Vineyard Reliability Project, which also will include the cross Vineyard Sound submarine cable. So there's plenty of permitting left to do for that segment of the project. It's currently in NEPA review, and the development of regional impact application been submitted to the Cape Cod Commission. And then we have plenty of other permits, such as the Army Corps of Engineers, CCM consistency, a Chapter 91 license, water quality certification, etc. But those are all for the submarine cable. Overall, the project benefit, beyond meeting the project need, is that it will, most of these benefits are accrued over on the island. However, it will better enable the integration of distributed renewable power on the vineyard. After the 5th cable is installed, there are 5 on-island diesel generators that can be decommissioned. As part of this project, the Shining Sea Bikeway will be widened, which will improve the recreational opportunities for the residents and visitors. And 15 utility poles along Palmer Ave will be relocated, again, to improve pedestrian passage. We appreciate that staff forwarded the comments to us. The 3 comments that were forwarded has Division of Fish and Wildlife comments been provided, and we haven't received any comments. As I noted, the work is just outside their habitat, and it is exempt from their review because it's a utility within an existing paved road. Will staging take place? Yes, there will be staging in the area of floodplain and along the coast. We expect staging to occur in the Mill Road parking lot and the shore / Surf Drive parking lot. Outside of those areas that are subject to the Commission's review, Eversource has made agreements to use the Depot Street parking lot and is working with the Steamship Authority for staging in the Steamship Authority parking lot near along the bikeway. And the DEP file number, as noted, has been issued. It was issued this morning. In closing, I think this is, in terms of the Wetlands Protection Act and the bylaw, it's a fairly straightforward project of work in the temporary alteration of floodplain to install the underground utility. It's all within the paved road, which will be restored. The same goes for the work in the buffer zone. And the BMPs will be installed to protect the receiving waters in wetlands. With that, we respectfully request the order of conditions for the project with, pragmatic special conditions that you apply to the project to protect the resource areas in the interest. And with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Hey, Dwight, you can stop sharing, please.
Okay, great,
But don't be surprised if we ask you to bring something back up.
sure.
All right. Matthew, do you have anything to add at this point?
Just Mr. Chairman, I will say, let me turn on my camera. I think Dwight covered it pretty much fully from a technical perspective. I will say that a lot of well, actually, I should identify myself first. I'm Matt Waldrop. I'm with Eversource's permitting group, and I signed the applicant's form. Myself and a lot of the other folks that work for Eversource have met very regularly with the other elected and appointed town officials. And the route that was selected in agreement with the town, and a lot of the mitigation that we agreed to was discussed prior with the town. The construction work, I'm not sure if Dwight mentioned this or not, but none of the construction will be taking place between the busiest season in Falmouth, between Memorial Day and Labor Day. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
All right. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. It is fairly straightforward. They only have one concern, and that is the presence of the plovers on Surf Drive. And I know, Dwight, that you say it's outside their mapped area. But that is a concern. You said no work between Memorial Day and Labor Day.
Correct.
That's
Okay,
correct.
so if we put a condition, if the board wants to put a condition to have a monitor out there just when you're in the vicinity of Surf Drive, would that be a problem? Because your project unfortunately is not exempt under our local regs when it comes to rare species. So I understand you'll be filing a formal MISA filing for the underwater portion of it, but I'm assuming not for the land portion of it, correct?
Correct. And the piping plovers in terns, I think their nesting season is generally May 1 to, August 31st or so. It aligns pretty well with the